The bank was quiet in the way moneyed places often were. Soft carpet, muted voices, the faint hum of machines working behind walls no customers ever saw. Marcus Ellison stepped up to the counter and placed a small envelope on the polished surface. Inside was a check, not a big one. Marcus, black, early 30s, clean-cut, understated, already knew that part was going to matter more than it should. "Deposit," he said simply. The teller slid the envelope open, glanced at the amount, then paused. Her eyebrows lifted just a fraction before she looked past Marcus toward the glass office behind her. "Hold on one moment," she said. Marcus waited. From behind the glass stepped Karen Whitfield, the branch manager. White, mid-40s, heels clicking softly, smile already forming before she reached the counter. "What seems to be the issue?" Karen asked. The teller tilted the check slightly so Karen could see. Karen let out a soft, amused breath. "Oh," she said, "that's modest." Marcus kept his face neutral. "It's a deposit." Karen smiled wider, the kind of smile that wasn't meant to be unkind, but was. "We usually recommend ATM deposits for amounts like this," she said. "Saves everyone time." Marcus met her eyes. "I prefer to do it in person." Karen glanced at the line behind him, empty, then back at the check. "Of course," she said, still smiling. "I just wanted to be sure you understood. The scale of things." Marcus nodded once. "I do." Karen leaned an elbow casually on the counter. "Is this a new account?" "No," Marcus replied. "Personal or business?" she asked. "Both," he said. That made her pause. She looked at the screen now, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Let me pull it up." The smile stayed. The smirk didn't. Marcus watched the reflection in the glass as Karen typed. He noticed how her posture shifted, slightly dismissive, slightly bored, the way people looked when they thought they already understood the story. "All right," Karen said, still facing the screen. "I see your account." She glanced back at Marcus. "Just so you know, small deposits don't really—" She stopped. Her fingers froze on the keyboard. The smile faded first, then the smirk. Karen leaned closer to the monitor, squinting. The screen refreshed, and then refreshed again. Marcus said nothing, because whatever Karen had just seen, it wasn't the amount of the check anymore. It was the account behind it, and the transfer screen was still loading. Karen didn't speak right away. She stared at the monitor as if it had glitched, then clicked the mouse once, twice, refreshing the page with more force than necessary. The teller beside her leaned in slightly, curiosity replacing routine. Marcus waited, hands resting calmly on the counter. "What is it?" the teller asked softly. Karen didn't answer. She scrolled. Her posture changed, shoulders straightening, chin lifting, the casual lean disappearing as if it had never been there. The tone of the moment shifted without a word being said. "I just need to verify something," Karen murmured, more to herself than anyone else. She clicked into another tab. Account overview, then linked accounts, then pending transfers. Marcus could see the reflection of the screen in the glass of the office behind her, just enough to notice movement, numbers cascading downward, columns loading one by one. Karen swallowed. "So," she said slowly, turning back toward him, "you said this was both personal and business?" "Yes," Marcus replied. "And this deposit," she continued, choosing her words more carefully now, "it's going into—" "Which account?" "The operating account," Marcus said. "Same as always." Karen nodded quickly. "Of course." She turned back to the screen, fingers moving faster now, less casually. The teller straightened beside her, eyes widening slightly. "Oh," the teller said under her breath. Karen shot her a look. Marcus noticed the change in how they both stood now, more attentive, more alert. Like the room itself had realized it had misjudged something. Karen cleared her throat. "Mr. Ellison," she said, voice noticeably warmer, "I see that there's a transfer scheduled today." "Yes," Marcus replied. "It should already be queued." Karen nodded again, eyes flicking back to the monitor. "It's sizable." Marcus allowed himself a small pause. That's correct. She clicked once more. The screen finished loading. The teller's eyes widened fully now. Karen inhaled sharply, then turned the monitor slightly away from public view, lowering her voice. This transfer? This is from an external institution? Yes, Marcus said. Private equity payout. Karen's earlier smile felt very far away now. I see, she said carefully. And the deposit you're making today? Marcus met her eyes. Is a formality. Silence hung between them for a beat. Karen straightened, smoothing the front of her blazer. We can certainly process this here, she said quickly. There's no need for the ATM. Marcus nodded. I thought so. Karen offered a new smile. This one practiced differently, respectful, professional. A smile that came with a subtle shift in power. Would you like to step into my office? She asked. We can complete everything more comfortably. Marcus glanced around the empty lobby. I'm fine here. Karen hesitated, then nodded. Of course. She turned back to the teller. Please prioritize Mr. Ellison's transaction. Yes, ma'am, the teller replied immediately. Karen faced Marcus again. I apologize if I seemed dismissive earlier. We see a lot of accounts, and sometimes... Marcus lifted a hand gently. You saw the check, he said. Not the account. Karen flushed slightly. That wasn't my intention. Marcus didn't argue. He didn't need to. The transfer screen sat open now, numbers steady, undeniable. The small deposit still lay on the counter between them, unchanged, unimpressive on its own. But it had done its job, because it wasn't the size of the check that told Marcus everything he needed to know. It was how quickly the room changed once the screen finished loading. The rest of the transaction unfolded in a different rhythm. Karen's movements were careful now, precise in a way that signaled importance. She spoke more quietly, more deliberately, explaining each step even though Marcus hadn't asked for an explanation. The teller nodded along, eyes flicking between the screen and Marcus with a new kind of attentiveness. Your deposit will post immediately, Karen said, and the transfer is scheduled to clear by end of business. Marcus nodded. That's fine. Karen hesitated, then added, If you'd like, we can also review your account structure. With balances like these, there are options we can offer. Marcus shook his head slightly. I'm comfortable with how it's set up. Of course, Karen said quickly. Just wanted you to know. She finished typing and slid the receipt across the counter, aligning it neatly with the edge as if the presentation itself mattered now. The teller handed Marcus a pen that suddenly felt ceremonial. As Marcus signed, he caught Karen watching him, not openly, but with the careful awareness of someone recalibrating their understanding. The earlier smirk was gone. In its place was something closer to unease. May I ask, Karen said, choosing her words again, how long you've been with us? Marcus looked up. 6 years. Karen blinked. 6? Yes. And you've always handled your accounts this way? She asked. In person, I mean. Marcus folded the receipt and slipped it into his jacket. When it makes sense. Karen nodded slowly. Well, we value long-term clients. Marcus met her eyes. That hasn't changed. Another pause. The silence this time wasn't awkward. It was instructive. Karen glanced at the check still on the counter. Oh, I hope you understand, she said carefully, that my earlier comment wasn't meant to diminish. Marcus stopped her with a look. Not harsh, just final. You don't need to explain. She closed her mouth, then nodded. Understood. The teller cleared her throat softly and returned to her station, the moment clearly over for her. Karen stepped back slightly, reclaiming the physical distance she'd lost when the screen had loaded. Marcus picked up his envelope. The check was still small. It always had been. But as he turned to leave, he felt the weight of something else settle comfortably in its place, the knowledge that the room had revealed itself fully. Not because he'd corrected anyone, not because he'd demanded respect, but because the system had spoken in numbers, and those numbers had forced a recalculation no smile could undo. Behind him, Karen watched him go. And for the first time since stepping out of her glass office, she understood that she hadn't misjudged a deposit. She'd misjudged a person. Marcus stepped out of the bank and into the afternoon light, the glass doors closing softly behind him. The street outside moved the same way it always did. Cars passing, people walking with coffee cups, and phones pressed to their ears. No one knew what had just happened inside. No one needed to. He paused for a moment, adjusting his jacket, feeling the envelope still tucked neatly under his arm. The deposit slip inside it was already processed, the transfer was already moving, the money was already where it belonged, but that wasn't what stayed with him. What stayed with him was the silence right after the screen finished loading, the moment when assumptions ran out of room, the split second when tone, posture and authority all had to be rewritten. Inside the bank, Karen remained at the counter long after Marcus had left. She stared at the screen again, not at the numbers this time, but at the account history. 6 years of steady movement, clean transfers, quiet growth, no drama, no spectacle. She exhaled slowly. The teller broke the silence. "He didn't say anything," she said. Karen shook her head. He didn't have to. For the rest of the afternoon, Karen found herself hesitating before making comments she'd once delivered casually. She looked twice before assuming, asked one extra question before explaining something no one had asked her to explain. The system hadn't corrected her, it had exposed her, and that stayed. That evening, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, laptop open, phone set beside him. A notification chimed softly. Transfer complete. He didn't smile, he didn't celebrate. He simply acknowledged it and closed the screen. He thought about the check again, how small it had looked on the counter, how easy it had been to dismiss, how often people confused what they could see for what actually mattered. Marcus poured himself a glass of water and leaned back in his chair. He didn't need a reaction. He didn't need an apology. He needed access to function the way it was supposed to, without commentary, without judgment, without someone deciding his worth based on a single number taken out of context. The bank had eventually done that, not because of persuasion, not because of patience, but because the truth was already there, waiting to load. Marcus turned off the light and stood, the day settling quietly into place. Tomorrow he'd move money again. Tomorrow he'd make decisions no one would see. And somewhere, behind a counter or a screen, someone might think twice before smirking at a small deposit, because once the account transfer screen loads, the story changes.